Now get this, folks, get this part. Although the brain currently is able to control the pitch and roll of the simulated aircraft in weather conditions ranging from blue skies to stormy hurricane force winds. I pause there. This neural network of rat brain can fly the airplane in conditions ranging from blue skies to stormy hurricane force winds. They say, despite that, the underlying goal is a more fundamental understanding of how neurons interact as a network. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break here to hear from our sponsors. Please support them. They are what make the wheels on the bus go round and round at RBN. Tune into their offerings, and we'll see you on the other side of this break.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen of the RBN listening audience, welcome back to the Crimson Pill program. I'm your host, Antonin Fiore. If you just happened to join us here, we left off by talking about an article which was posted, written by the Science Daily, www.sciencedaily.com. I'll give you the date here in just a moment, but the thesis of the article, we're talking about scientists at the University of Florida who have grown a living brain comprised of rats' brain neurons that has been cultured in a glass dish and consisting of about 25,000 rat brain cells connected to an array of 60 electrodes that can interact with a computer to fly a simulated F-22 fighter plane. Now, I'm not going to rehash this whole material, but I did give you the teaser before we began that I was going to tell you the date after we talked about it. I'm almost tempted to listen to a few of the callers and see if they can guess what year this was written, but I'm going to steal that thunder and tell you now. This is from October 22nd of 2004. 2004, 7 years ago, that they had conducted this research and had the capability of having a rat's brain, and actually not the whole rat's brain, no, they took scrapings, they took neurons and put them together in a dish and cultured them to create a quote-unquote brain of its own. Folks, the reason I reached deep into the Crimson Pill archives to grab this particular piece is, again, because of this latest news of the human-animal hybrids that have been grown in UK labs and, point in fact, are being grown all over the world in their laboratories of these multinational corporations that have no moral compass whatsoever. That's the reason that I reached into the archives to grab this article about rats' neurons controlling flight simulators via computers. But, the other reason that I reached into the archives to grab this article is because I began to think, as despicable as that sounds to me, as disruptive as that is to my moral compass, maybe there are some possible applications of it that are not just intelligible, but could make a big difference in the world. And what do I mean by that? What possible application could I be talking about? Well, folks, let me read to you this headline that I just printed off the presses today. Democrats enforce filibuster against their own debt bill. That is correct. Your members of the United States Senate today, with the bill on the table, which is basically considered to be Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's own bill, they're filibustering it, folks. They're filibustering their own bill. Why? Well, again, it's part of the political maneuverings. It's part of the circus that's going on, the posturing. That absolutely makes me sick to my stomach. And so, I am forced to ask myself the question, maybe that glass dish of 25,000 living neurons from a rat's brain could be cultured and replaced into some of these senators' heads to possibly do something right for once in this country instead of doing what's right for themselves individually, instead of doing what's right for their own political careers, their own political aspirations. Folks, we've been hearing about this debt crisis circus, the debt ceiling, Armageddon crisis for months now. They've continually told us a string of lies about the key threshold dates involved. We're coming up on it. We know they're going to pass it. When you take the whole thing, people, and boil it down, there's really only one point of contention. The mainstream media, it keeps telling you, keeps trying to spin you into believing that this is about whether or not we're going to increase taxes or whether or not we're going to make cuts to Social Security, to Medicare. Folks, both sides have agreed that those cuts are going to happen to Medicare. It makes me sick when they call Social Security an entitlement when every working American has been taking withholding out of their paychecks as long as they worked, contributing to this fund, which should have been stewarded, should have been shepherded by people with moral compasses, and now they're talking about making cuts to it and changes to its policy, and they have the audacity to call it an entitlement program. When Bernie Madoff conducts his Ponzi scheme, he gets arrested and thrown in jail, rightfully. When our government does the exact same thing to us, then they turn around and have the pills to call it an entitlement program. Well, that both sides agree that they're going to make cuts to it. There's only one small party involved in this, one grouping of people who have a moral compass. Those are the Tea Party representatives who are holding fast to the commitments that they made in their individual campaigns. And now you have the Democrats who are filibustering their own bill. They shot down the bill that the House passed last night. They shot it down, and the Senate Republicans were ready for a straight-up vote on this bill so very soon after the other was shot down, just so that this bill could be shot down, and then we could get on to the business of negotiating a new one. And the Democrats are filibustering their own bill, what I wouldn't give for a glass dish culture of 25,000 rat neurons to be able to replace a few of those minds in the Senate right now. And don't get me wrong, folks, I'm not just lambasting the Democrats. I'm an equal opportunity hater of the parties in our government. I only see one grouping of people. Those are the Tea Party candidates who stand a chance, who are holding fast to the commitments that they made during their campaigns to us. So I applaud that. I applaud that. But, folks, here's the terrible part of it. As I look forward to this next election cycle in 2012, and I told you, there is only one component of this entire thing, which is a true debate. There's only one component that all of this wrangling and all of this theater and circus is actually all about. And that component is how much to raise the debt ceiling by in this first measure. In other words, the Republicans are trying to push to only raise it by $1 trillion or a little bit more so that it will have to come up to a vote once again sometime in 2012 prior to the elections. And the Democrats are trying to raise the debt ceiling by enough that it won't have to be revisited until 2013. And if you can't put that together in your mind, I'll explain it more fully. The Democrats are trying to make sure that Obama won't take the political flack, and also they themselves in the campaigns won't take the political flack of having to revisit the debt ceiling issue prior to next year's elections, whereas the Republicans are trying to push for exactly that to happen. That's the only thing that's being wrangled about and negotiated about when you break it right down, folks. Both sides agree that they're going to screw us on Social Security, that they're going to make cuts to Medicare. Both sides agree that taxes are going to be raised. Only this small contingent of Tea Partiers are holding fast to their guns, to their moral compass. I applaud that. But you know what the problem is, gang? When we look at that presidential election of 2012, I need you to dust off your history books and take a look at how the presidential election of 1992 turned out 20 years ago. How did that turn out? Well, you had a Republican candidate that was in the right pocket of the New World Order, of the international banksters. He was actually running for re-election. He was the incumbent. That's George Bush Sr. And then you had this upstart who was CFR, later to become affiliated and associated with all of the underground wranglings of the New World Order and the international bankers. That, of course, was William Jefferson Clinton. And then you had someone who was in the mix that was representing what is actually moral and right, representing not just a constitutional perspective, but also a perspective of fiscal responsibility, and that was Ross Perot. And what happened? Ross Perot's presence was just enough to deflect enough votes away from the incumbent Republican that the Democrat was elected. What do we have this year, folks? Right now, you've got a couple of these candidates that are vying for the Republican nomination. They are going to be superseded by one or two of these candidates, and I'm pointing at Mitt Romney, and I'm pointing at the governor from Texas, Rick Perry. One or two of those guys are going to wind up getting that nod because they're in the back pocket of the international banksters. They're going to get that nod, and then one of these other candidates is going to defect, and they're going to go to the Tea Party, and they're going to wind up deflecting enough votes away from the Republican candidate that you're going to see, as much to my chagrin as it is, you're hearing it from Antonin Fiore, his prediction for the 2012 election is that interim President Barack Obama will likely be reelected because of that conflict, that infighting on the right. The Tea Party, as much as I absolutely align with everything that effort is about, it will wind up doing the same thing, quite likely. to remove this imposter from office. It will likely cause the same problems as we saw with Ross Perot in '92, and we're going to see a continuation. I absolutely, believe me, folks, hope that that is not the case. I hope it does not go down that way. Unfortunately, well, let's leave that at that for the moment. We do have a caller on the line. Jeff in Idaho, you've been waiting patiently, and I appreciate that, sir. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Jeff, I'd like to say good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program, and what's on your mind?
Well, I was just going along your transhumanism issues of this cloning stuff. You know,
yes, sir.
One of the things I would have people reference is Steve Quayle on his website has some interesting stuff that on one of his books, The Long Walkers. Essentially, it's a book that's been made into a screenplay, I think.
Yes.
But in 2005, a special forces group in Afghanistan was destroyed by a 12-foot giant that had 6 fingers and 6 toes, dual set of teeth, and, basically weighed about 1,200 pounds. The SEAL team was sent in to basically find a lost group of soldiers, and then this giant basically jumps out, and they basically shoot it up, and the long of the story is it's flown out